Have you ever wondered what secrets the vast, untamed American West truly holds? Beyond the tales of cowboys and gold rushes, there are darker stories, whispered in the flickering firelight of wagon trains pushing ever westward. Stories of a land that remembers, and of ancient spirits that do not forget. Today, we journey back to the 19th century, onto a path not marked on any mapper path of terror, where westward expansion collided with the sacred, and the price was paid in fear. Imagine this: a small group of pioneers, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and hardship, pushing their covered wagons across the plains. They see an empty wilderness, a land of promise ripe for the taking. But they are blind. They don't see the burial mounds they level for a smoother passage, the sacred circles of stones they dismantle for their campfires, or the ancient pictographs they unknowingly deface. To them, it's just land. To the spirits tied to that land, it's a desecration. Our story follows the Cartwright family and a few others traveling with them. At first, the journey was grueling but ordinary. Long days under a relentless sun, the constant creak of wagon wheels, the fear of running low on water. But then, things began to change. It started small. A child's doll, tucked securely into a trunk, would be found sitting upright on a rock 100 yards from camp, its button eyes seeming to stare back with an unseen intelligence. Tools would vanish from locked boxes, only to reappear, twisted and broken, in the middle of their path the next morning. The nights became the worst. As the sun bled out across the horizon, a profound silence would fall, a silence so heavy it felt like a physical weight. Then the whispers would begin. Faint at first, like the sighing of the wind, they would slowly coalesce into guttural words in a language no one understood. The sounds seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, slithering into their tents, curling around them as they tried to sleep. Men would wake up clawing at their ears, their faces pale with sweat, swearing they heard voices calling their names from the darkness, beckoning them to walk out into the empty plains. One evening, as the group huddled around a meager fire, Mr. Henderson, a grizzled former trapper, recounted a legend he'd heard from a local tribe years ago. He spoke of guardian spirits, protectors of the ancestral lands. He said these spirits weren't evil, but they were fiercely protective. They drew their power from the land itself, and when the land was wounded, so were they. Desecrating their sacred sites was like tearing a wound into their very being, and they would respond with a fury born of centuries of slumber. As Henderson spoke, a sudden, chilling wail echoed from the hills. It wasn't the cry of a coyote or any known animal. It was a sound of pure agony and rage, a sound that seemed to scrape against their very souls. The horses, usually calm, thrashed in their harnesses, their eyes wide with terror. The pioneers scrambled for their rifles, peering into the oppressive darkness, but they saw nothing. The land itself seemed to be screaming at them. The haunting escalated. Shadowy figures were glimpsed at the edge of the firelight, all spectral forms that flickered and vanished when looked at directly. The travelers began to suffer from vivid, shared nightmares. They dreamt of running through an endless, shadowy forest, chased by figures with glowing eyes, their feet never touching the ground. They'd wake up gasping for air, the phantom feeling of being hunted lingering long into the daylight hours. The psychological toll was immense. Suspicion and paranoia began to poison the group. They accused each other of playing tricks, of trying to drive them mad. Friendships forged over miles of shared hardship began to crack. Young Sarah Cartwright, a girl of only 10, seemed the most affected. She would sit for hours, staring out at the landscape, talking to someone who wasn't there. She claimed a man with a face like painted stone was telling her stories of the sky and the earth, and warning her that they were walking on the bones of his people. Her mother, Mary, was terrified. One afternoon, she found Sarah drawing in the dirt. The drawings were not the simple flowers and houses of a child. They were complex symbols and figures, eerily similar to the pictographs they had seen on rocks miles back. When Mary asked what she was drawing, Sarah looked up, her eyes seeming older than her years, and said, "He says we have to give it back. We have to put the stones back where we found them." The message was clear, but the pioneers were torn. Turn back. Lose weeks of progress. To some, it was madness, the ravings of a feverish child. But for others, the terror was too real. That night, a decision was forced upon them. A freak storm rolled in with impossible speed, the sky turning a bruised purple. But it wasn't rain that fell, it was dust, a fine, red dust that coated everything, choking them, blinding them. And within the swirling dust, they saw them clearly for the first time. Not just shadows, but distinct apparitions of indigenous warriors. Their forms made of wind and earth, their faces masks of cold fury. They didn't attack physically. They didn't have to. They simply stood there, a silent, terrifying judgment. This was the breaking point. The next morning, under a strangely clear sky, the group made a choice. Led by a now-believing Mr. Cartwright, they backtracked. They painstakingly reassembled the stone circles they had destroyed. They found the burial mound they had flattened and, using their bare hands and shovels, tried to restore its shape, offering words of apology to the empty air. It was a desperate act of penance. As they worked, a strange peace began to settle over them. The oppressive silence lifted, replaced by the natural sounds of the plains. The whispers ceased. That night, for the first time in weeks, they slept without nightmares. The child, Sarah, smiled in her sleep. The spirits, it seemed, had been appeased. Their vengeance was not about destruction, but about demanding respect. They wanted the intruders to see the land not as an empty space to be conquered, but as a living, sacred entity. The pioneers never made it to their original destination. They turned south, finding a different route forever changed by their encounter. They carried with them not a story of conquest, but a humbling tale of the power that resides in the earth and the importance of respecting the history that came before. Their path of terror became a path of understanding. It serves as a chilling reminder that when we venture into the wild, we are never truly alone. We are merely visitors in a place with a memory far longer and more powerful than our own. What do you think? Could these events really have happened? The history of the American West is full of unexplained disappearances and stories of madness on the trail. Perhaps some of those tales have a supernatural origin, born from the clash of cultures and a land that refused to be forgotten. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the spectral heart of the Old West. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe for more tales from the shadows, and ring that notification bell. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious and respect the history beneath your feet.